Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Ready to wash your hands? Okay, let's sing.
We put the soap on our hands. We put the soap on our hands. We rub the palms up our hands. We rub the palms up our hands. And scrub our little index fingers. Scrub our little middle finger. Scrub our little ring finger. Scrub our little pinky finger. Don't forget to thumb scrub it. I won't forget my thumbs. I'm scrubbing. Don't forget your nails. Scrub 'em. I won't forget my nails. I'm scrubbing. Ooh, now the back of our hands. Ooh, between our fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your trouble.
Wash it really good. Wash it really good.
Put the soap on my hands.
We put the soap on our hands.
I rub the palms on my hands.
We rub the palms of our hands. And
Scrub my little index finger. Scrub my little middle finger. Scrub my little ring finger. Scrub my little pinky finger.
don't forget to thumb scrub it.
I won't forget my thumbs. I'm scrubbing.
Don't forget your nails. Scrub 'em.
I won't forget my nails. I'm scrubbing.
Ooh, now the back of our hands. Ooh, between my fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your trouble.
Wash it really good. Wash it really good.
Oh,
Hands so clean. So pristine, teen. Hands so clean.
So pristine.
woohoo, fun song. Bobo and Titi. Bobo and Titi and friends.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is Cayman kind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Dear parents and guardians,
We care deeply about our students.
And we understand the challenges you may face.
during these unprecedented times.
We want you to know that we are committed to ensuring
that your child's education continues.
And that you are not alone.
we are doing everything that we can
To make sure
No child.
no child is left behind.
But to do so,
We need your help to get connected
and stay connected
with you and your child. So reach out to us, speak to us.
About how we can best support you
and your needs.
Working hand in hand with you
is the only way
to secure our children's future.
we are in this
You're in this.
together.
We are in this together. Sincerely, your school leaders.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. We know in this community, family means everything. And there are different types of families in our community. So, who do you stay home for?
I stay home for my fans.
I stay home for my pageant sisters.
I stay home for my congregation.
I'm staying home for my students.
Hi, Captain West here, stays home for all your land lovers out there.
I stay home to preserve my culture for future generations.
I stay home for my fellow athletes.
I stay home for the love of our masqueraders.
I stay home for the music fraternity.
I stay home for my community.
I stay home for my pupils.
And we all stay home because
staying home is K-Mankind.
Staying at home is K-Mankind.
Staying home is K-Mankind.
Staying home is K-Mankind.
Staying home is K-Mankind.
Dear students, we know that you miss your friends, being outside,
and most of all, coming to school.
And we hope you understand that everything happening right now is to keep you safe from harm.
You are our priority. You are the future.
Even though these are tough times,
we believe in you.
We believe in you.
To be the leaders we know you can be.
To stay focused on doing your best work,
even when no one is watching.
To be helpful and respectful.
To your parents and guardians at all times.
To be kind and thoughtful
to everyone around you.
Always be thankful,
even for the little things.
And most of all, to remember
to keep in touch with us because
we're here for you.
We are here for you.
We are here for you. Love your teachers.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good. Ready to wash your hands? Okay, let's sing. We put the soap on our hands. We put the soap on our hands. We got the pom-poms up our hands. We got the pom-poms up our hands. And scrub our little index finger. Scrub our little middle finger. Scrub our little ring finger. Scrub our little pinky finger. Don't forget the thumbs, scrub it. I won't forget my thumbs, I'm scrubbing. Don't forget your nails, scrub them. I won't forget my nails, I'm scrubbing. Ooh, and at the back of our hands. Ooh, between our fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your troubles, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
I put the soap on my hands.
I put the soap on our hands.
I rub the pom-poms on my hands.
We got the pom-poms up our hands. And
scrub my little index finger. Scrub my little middle finger. Scrub my little ring finger. Scrub my little pinky finger.
Don't forget the thumbs, scrub it.
I won't forget my thumbs, I'm scrubbing.
Don't forget your nails, scrub them.
I won't forget my nails, I'm scrubbing.
Ooh, and at the back of our hands. Ooh, between my fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, wash it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your troubles,
wash it really good. Wash it really good. Oh!
And so clean. So pristine, teen. And so clean.
So pristine. Woohoo! Fun song. Bobo and Titi. Bobo and Titi and friends.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Dear parents and guardians,
we care deeply about our students.
And we understand the challenges you may face
during these unprecedented times.
We want you to know that we are committed to ensuring
that your child's education continues
and that you are not alone.
We are doing everything that we can
to make sure
no child
is left behind.
But to do so,
we need your help to get connected
and stay connected
with you and your child.
So reach out to us, speak to us
about how we can best support you
and your needs.
Working hand in hand with you is the only way to secure our children's future.
We are in this together.
We are in this together. Sincerely, your school leaders.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. We know in this community, family means everything. And there are different types of families in our community. So, who do you stay home for?
I stay home for my fans.
I stay home for my pageant sisters.
I stay home for my congregation.
I'm staying home for my students.
Hi, Captain West here. Stays home for all your land lovers out there.
I stay home to preserve my culture for future generations.
I stay home for my fellow athletes.
I stay home for the love of our masqueraders.
I stay home for the music fraternity.
I stay home for my community.
I stay home for my pupils.
And we all stay home because
Staying home is K-Mankind.
Staying at home is K-Mankind.
Staying home is K-Mankind.
Staying home is K-Mankind.
staying home is K-Mankind.
Dear students, We know that you miss your friends, being outside,
and most of all, coming to school. And we hope you understand that everything happening right now is to keep you safe from harm.
You are our priority. You are the future.
Even though these are tough times,
we believe in you.
We believe in you.
To be the leaders we know you can be.
To stay focused on doing your best work,
even when no one is watching.
To be helpful and respectful.
To your parents and guardians at all times.
To be kind and thoughtful
to everyone around you.
Always be thankful,
even for the little things.
And most of all, to remember
to keep in touch with us because
we're here for you. We are here for you.
We are here for you.
Love your teachers.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at today's coronavirus press briefing. I'm Caroline James, in for Donna Bush. Welcome to our viewers joining us on CIGTV, YouTube, Facebook, and our listeners on Radio Cayman. Now, today's prayer comes as we get to the end of Child Month that we've celebrated this May, and it comes to us from Miss Leah Johnson.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for His Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Premier, Honorable Minister of Health. Lord, we ask that you continue to protect our governor and our country in these difficult times during COVID-19. Dear Lord, in Isaiah 41:10 says, your word says, fear not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Lord, we thank you for your word and promises and trust that you will continue to lead and guide this country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Leah. We're joined today by our panel, His Excellency the Governor, the Honourable Premier, the Honourable Minister for Health. And in the room with us, we have the Chief Medical Officer, the Police Commissioner, and our sign language interpreter, along with the Director of Hazard Management, Cayman Islands. Welcome to members of the media joining us on Zoom, and we also have the the Medical Officer of Health joining us also via Zoom. So we'll turn first to Dr. Lee.
Good afternoon. As you know, we've been focusing on trying to screen certain sectors of the population in order for us to get a feel for the rates of infection in the working population that are going back to work. And we have got through around 15% of construction. I've actually had a whole shed load of results that I received about an hour ago, so this figure that I'm about to give you doesn't include that. But so far we've screened around 15% of the construction group that have gone back to work, and we anticipate that group to be around 8,000 people. Of those, we've had around 6 of them come back as positive with COVID-19 disease, or the test for COVID-19 disease, and which is a rate of around 0.5%. Since we started the mass screening program 5 weeks ago, our highest percentage was 1.1% of the number of people testing positive, and the average of that has been 0.5%. So actually the construction workers are bang smack in the middle of that average percentage. As you know, the HSA has been having a maintenance day today, but for some reason they've excelled themselves and actually have produced 496 results despite the maintenance day. Some of those have come in last night and some have come in this morning. The Doctors Hospital have also produced 177 results, and that totals 673 added results today, of which one is a positive, and that positive is presumed to be a community acquired. And as with all the results we've reported since the 27th of April, that was somebody who was asymptomatic who presented for screening. That brings our total positive to 141, with 3 remaining in Cayman Brac positive, which are obviously historical positives. I just want to dwell a little bit on Cayman Brac. They've continued their screening program in Cayman Brac and have currently swabbed 818 people in all of the population of some 2,000. So they're going to hit their target of having screened 50% of their population probably middle to end of next week. Of those 818, 699 have received their results or have had the results produced and will be receiving them imminently. As we know, there are 3 positives amongst those 699. There's also some good news for Cayman Brac and good news for the Cayman Islands. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office have been trying to procure machines to further increase our capacity to test for this disease, and they have sent machines called Gene Expert machines made by a manufacturer called Kefid to a number of the UK overseas territories. The Gene Expert machine has arrived on Cayman and has just been picked up this morning. This machine is different to our current real-time PCR machines, as it's more like, you might think, a Keurig or a Nespresso coffee machine. You pick the cartridge that you want, and in this case, we've got 200 cartridges that we're going to test for the COVID disease. You pick the cartridge, you put the sample into the cartridge, and then the result comes out about half an hour to 45 minutes later. So it's a much simpler technique in order to find a result, and much quicker. As I mentioned, this GeneXpert machine has holes for 4 cartridges at once. So it's not as capable of turning out the volumes that are the other systems we have on the island. It's anticipated that once the Health Service Authority are used to the machine, that it's gone through its checks and everybody is comfortable with how it's used and everybody is trained in how it's used, it's anticipated that that machine will go to Cayman Brac in order to help Cayman Brac be more independent, particularly with the hurricane season upon us starting on Monday. If either of the airports were unfortunately to be cut off at any time, it would leave them a little bit more independent from some of the medical needs, especially around the time of COVID, in order to help manage the population on the sister island. So that's really good news for Cayman Brac. That machine has been given to us by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, along with 200 of the, almost like a starter packs for us to start to test for SARS-CoV-2. Just to go on through the figures, so we currently have 1 symptomatic person, 71 asymptomatic. We remain with nobody admitted with COVID-19, and 68 have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Just quickly before I turn to, we'll go first to Kayla Young at the Cayman Compass. The new kit that you mentioned, is that already on island or it's on its way?
Yes, that arrived, was picked up from customs late this morning. So it'll take a bit of time for them to get used to how to use it. But
And that was going to be my next question. Does it require any special training in order to use?
It does. I mean, all new equipment requires a little bit of special training, but it's much less specialist, which is the beauty of it. It's much more something that any laboratory could take on. It doesn't need the particular sets of skills that you need to use a PCR machine, as I understand it. I stand to be corrected, but that's what I understand. It's much easier to use.
Great, thank you. Kayla, go ahead with your question for Dr. Lee.
Hi, Dr. Lee.
Hi.
I wanted to get some more information about the GeneXpert machine that you just mentioned. Is there any difference in how testing is carried out with this type of machine? Is there any difference in the accuracy level of the results that it produces?
No, this is the same scientific basis of polymerase chain reaction as the other polymerase chain reaction machines that we have. It's done in a much more kit form, so that you can't. The results come out when you put the kit in. It's specific for the disease you're looking for. The like cartridge that you put in is specific for the disease you're looking for. But then you can get different cartridges for different diseases. So you can get a dengue cartridge, for example, or an influenza cartridge that you could put in and check a sample for that. I think that's basically it. It's a much easier way of being able to test, but you can't put the volumes through it like you can through the other labs, which can take, result 50 or 100 people at a time.
So will this change the number of tests that we are able to complete in a day?
I mean, it'll change it a little bit. I think what's far more important is the fact that if we have urgent samples, and we have a lot of urgent samples, like let's say we need to air ambulance somebody off, or we want to transfer them from one hospital to another, or there's pressure on space and you need to know whether you can release somebody from one part of the hospital to another part of the hospital, those sorts of, or at a diagnostic level, those sorts of decisions and results can be available much faster.
Great. And you said that a machine will be going to the BRAC. Will this be the machine provided by the FCO or the PCR machine that's currently in use?
No, it'll be the BRAC's laboratory facilities are fairly sophisticated for a small island, so they can remain independent. This is going to add to their armamentarium, and this will be a GeneXpert machine. So we wouldn't be sending one of the bigger PCR machines there. That wouldn't really work, as you don't need to send somebody with particular technical expertise there, which is not required for them.
Great. And we've seen a bit of a change in the breakdown between men versus women who have tested positive for COVID. Is this an influence of testing more construction workers? And do we see any kind of difference from observing cases here internationally in how men versus women are reacting to the disease?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because we've been screening working population, you're actually looking at, you're probably more representative of the demographics of who you're looking at rather than the nature of the people as everybody's coming forward with relatively few symptoms. And also equally, that working population group are much less likely to have chronic diseases, although some will obviously, but much less likely to. I think I shared the other day as well that the age range of the people who have tested positive is also a very narrow range. It's between 20 and 60, and there's a peak around 30 to 40, so it is a much, much younger group. As far as the experience of COVID, as the disease is concerned, as people experiencing symptoms, not sure we've had enough of patients of that to look to see where we're comparable. We're lucky in that we haven't had enough, in that we haven't had that much disease on the island.
Thank you, Doctor. That's all for me.
Thank you, Kayla. CNS, Wendy Ledger. Wendy.
Thanks, Caroline. Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Just
Hello
a very
again.
quick sort of housekeeping question, actually. Can you tell us when people who are in quarantine first start getting tested? Is it after the full 14 days or before that?
I think you're talking about the people who are put in isolation who've travelled. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They've got government quarantine facilities. So
the first test will be done after they've spent 14 full days in quarantine.
Okay.
Of course, if that timing of that happens, if that 14 days ends at 6 p.m. on a day, they're not going to be tested until the next day. I don't think that would be reasonable. So.
Okay, so they serve the full they go there for the full 14 days. Then they have their first test, and if that test is positive, they continue to stay there until they produce 2 negatives. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So when you're tested for the first time after 14 days and it's negative, how long do they wait before they have to be tested again?
If they have a negative test after they've been isolated for travel, then they're free to go after that.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to do, was just clarify that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's all I have for Dr. Lee today.
Great. Thank you, Media. Thank you, Dr. Lee. We'll turn next to Commissioner Byrne.
Good afternoon. The crime situation across Cayman Islands remains very stable, and the policing and security operating environment is very calm. The hard curfew in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac continues to operate well. Social distancing at commercial and business outlets is going well, and most businesses visited by our officers have introduced signage and guides for social distancing, and patrons and customers are reported to be understanding and compliant. We have received a number of reports where persons are promoting house parties and inviting friends over for drinks and meals. Some of these events are captured on social media, others are notified in the forms of complaints received from members of the community. To remind community, this is not permitted under the regulations, and a small number of persons have been warned for prosecution. These social gatherings breach both soft and hard curfew provisions. I previously mentioned that speeding was a major community concern, and we have, of course, seen an increased amount of traffic on our roads. And just over the past 2 weeks, 404 motorists were issued with speeding tickets between the 15th and the 29th of May, top speed 102 miles per hour. So I think there's no need to remind community listeners and the public that speeding is a big contributor to serious and fatal accidents. We must slow down on our roads to prevent fatalities and serious injuries. To give a rundown on where we are with the prosecutions or the warnings for intended prosecution under the curfew regulations, to date from the 23rd of March, we have had about 780 persons warned for prosecution for breach of hard curfew or soft curfew regulations. And of interest in that, 17 persons have been warned for prosecution more than once. This includes 2 persons who have been warned on 3 separate occasions, and one person warned on 4 separate occasions. 53% of the persons warned for prosecution were pedestrians or on bicycles, and 47% were in vehicles. And since the start of COVID restrictions, 42% of all warnings for prosecution have been in Georgetown, 32% in West Bay, 11% on Cayman-Brack, 11% in Bodden Town, 3% in East End, and 1% in Northside. In the last 14 days, there have been 35 incidents resulting in warnings for prosecution being issued against 51 persons. And these incidents were in West Bay 18, Georgetown 12, Bodden Town 3, East End 1, and Cayman-Brack 1. Just a very quick snapshot of where we are with crime. Overall crime, excluding COVID incidents, has reduced by 33% compared to the same period for 2019. Violent crime has reduced by 25% compared to the same period for 2019. Burglary has reduced by 63% compared to the same period in 2019. Robbery has reduced by 89% compared to the same period for 2019. And theft has reduced by 62% compared to the same period in 2019. So just gives you a snapshot of where we are and the impact of curfew and both the soft and the hard curfew regulations. If I could now, well, otherwise all is stable and calm across the islands, but if I could take a few moments to go through changes in shelter-in-place and hard curfew changes which will come into effect next Monday, the 1st of June 2020. And just to run through them insofar as they impact on policing operations and to provide the legal framework, this morning, the 29th of May 2020, as required under the provisions of Section 49 of the Police Law 2017 revision, I consulted with His Excellency the Governor of the Cayman Islands and advised him of the necessity to impose a new curfew order commencing on the evening of the 1st of June 2020. My advice to His Excellency was predicated on the basis that it appears to me that having regard to the immediate threat of a serious hazard on Grand Cayman and Cayman-Brack in the Cayman Islands associated with COVID-19 virus, that there are reasonable grounds to believe that in the interests of public safety, it is necessary to impose a new curfew order. This morning, following a meeting of the National Hazard Management Executive, followed by a meeting of Cabinet, I have now received permission from His Excellency the Governor to impose a new curfew order effective Monday, the 1st of June 2020. And in that permission, it has been approved that this new imposition of curfew order will be in place for a period of 21 days and will end on the morning of the 22nd of June and will be subject to the following conditions. Curfew period will run nightly between the hours of 8 p.m. and 4:30 a.m. for the period Sunday night, the 1st of June 2020, until 4:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, the 7th of June 2020. On the night of the 7th of June 2020, Sunday, adjustments will be made for the hard curfew period to run nightly from 10 p.m. until 4:30 a.m., concluding on Monday morning, the 22nd of June 2020. The new imposition of curfew order relates to Grand Cayman and Cayman-Brack only. And just to explain it a little, this weekend, the existing imposition of curfew order remains in place, with nightly hard curfew between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 p.m. That is tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday and Sunday night on Grand Cayman and Cayman-Brack. For Grand Cayman, a 2-hour exercise period is permitted tomorrow and Sunday between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. on both dates. Beach access is permitted tomorrow, Saturday, subject to the alphabet surname restrictions, permitting surname range L to Z only. Beach access, fishing or marine activity is not permitted this coming Sunday, the 31st of May 2020. Moving to Monday, the 1st of June 2020, new regulations titled the Prevention, Control and Suppression of COVID-19, Partial Lifting of Restrictions Regulations 2020 will come into effect. These new regulations will be gazetted later this evening, and the key dates contained in the new regulations are Monday, the 1st of June and Sunday, the 7th of June 2020. The new regulations will significantly ease shelter-in-place our soft curfew restrictions, and the Premier will address you shortly on the range of easing of restrictions contained in the new regulations. And I will now outline the changes in hard curfew hours and the easing of restrictions that will apply. And I think I'll deal with Cayman Brac first. Soft curfew or shelter-in-place regulations contained in SL 42/2020, dated the 30th of April, which came into effect on the 4th of May, will remain in place over this weekend until Monday morning, the 1st of June at 4:30 a.m. This means that the existing imposition of curfew order, the nightly hard curfew, remains in place this weekend, tonight, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m, and ends on Monday morning next, the 1st of June at 4:30 a.m, which is a very slight adjustment of 30 minutes from 5 a.m. back to 4:30 a.m. During this period of curfew, only exempted essential services personnel may be on the road, outside and away from the residence. On Monday evening, the 1st of June 2020, the nightly curfew period will be adjusted slightly, introducing a nightly curfew between the hours of 8 p.m. and 4:30 a.m. morning, which will run through until Sunday, the 7th of June 2020. And then on Sunday, the 7th of June 2020, nighttime curfew will be further adjusted to run nightly between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4:30 a.m., running through until Monday morning, the 22nd of June 2020. Looking at Grand Cayman, it's very similar to Cayman Brac, but just for clarity, I'll go through it. The current soft curfew or shelter-in-place regulations contained in SL 47/2020, dated the 16th of May 2020, which came into effect on the 19th of May 2020, will remain in place until Monday morning, the 1st of June at 4:30 a.m. This means that the existing imposition of curfew order, the nightly hard curfew, remains in place this weekend, tonight, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m, ending next Monday morning, the 1st of June 2020 at 4:30 a.m, which again is a slight adjustment backwards of 30 minutes. During this period of curfew, only exempted essential services personnel may be on the road, outside and away from their residence. On Monday evening next, the 1st of June 2020, the night curfew period will be adjusted slightly, introducing a night curfew between the hours of 8 p.m. and 4:30 a.m, running through until Sunday morning, the 7th of June 2020. Effective Sunday night, the 7th of June 2020, nighttime curfew will be further adjusted to run each night between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4:30 a.m, running through until Tuesday morning, the 22nd of June 2020. And from a policing perspective, the key changes to curfew from Sunday, the 7th of June are: nighttime curfew is between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4:30 a.m. each night, Monday to Sunday included, on Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac. On Sunday, the 7th of June, and each of the following Sundays within the period of curfew, that is Sunday the 14th of June and Sunday the 21st of June, beach access is permitted between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 9 p.m, subject to the alphabet surname restrictions Monday to Saturday, with no restriction on beach exercise on Sunday. Sunbathing, parties, picnics or congregating on public beaches is not permitted, and access to public beaches on Cayman Brac is already permitted by previous regulation. Exercise is permitted for 2 hours each day between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 9 p.m. Exercise includes walking exercise on the beach and swimming in the seawater, and also includes fishing from the shoreline and Iron Shore. Changes to take place to deliveries. They are permitted until 11 p.m. food deliveries, collections of food until 9 p.m. curbside takeaway or drive-through, and all activities are subject to physical distancing or social distancing requirements set out in the new regulations. To assist in understanding this easing of restriction, exercise is confined to a period of 2 hours, and exercise includes swimming and fishing from the shoreline, includes Iron Shore. Social distancing requirements apply, and persons should not congregate in groups of more than 6. No other inshore activities are permitted. No picnics or other social gatherings are permitted on public beaches. And just to look at boating and fishing, the restriction on the use of boats for fishing and leisure has been relaxed, and permits fishing and leisure boating between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 9 p.m. each day of the week, including Sunday. Inter-island travel by boat for leisure, for leisure and fishing is not permitted and is subject to the restrictions that no more than 6 persons may be on a boat and compliance with physical and social distancing protocols. And just to highlight, as in the previous regulations, no fishing or boating or congregating are permitted at the following locations: Stingray City, Starfish Point, Rum Point and Sandbar. This means that a person may not anchor any boat, exercise on the beach, fish or swim, or carry out any activities in any of these mentioned locations. This restriction does not impact beachside residents exercising at those locations. Apologies that took a little longer than would have liked, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know we have some questions for you. Kayla at the Compass, first of all.
Hi, Commissioner.
Kayla.
I see that you're reading the restrictions from a written statement. Will the hard curfew regulations be released or a copy distributed to the media for clarity?
I'm looking at that at the moment, so a decision will be made next week, yeah.
On whether or not to release a written copy of the hard curfew regulations?
The hard curfew orders, which are made under Section 49.1, yeah.
Okay, great. And I wanted to clarify on when the new exercise restrictions will start. When can we start the 5:15 to 9 p.m. schedule?
That starts on Sunday, the 7th of June.
Great. And Sundays, anyone will be able to exercise on the beach?
Yes.
Have there been any issues with beach access so far? Any problems with people abusing or crowding?
No, reports from a helicopter and our ATV patrols is that it's all going pretty well. I think there's been 2 detections over the last 2 weeks of breach of the soft curfew regulations.
Okay, great. And you listed some interesting crime stats that we see that crime is down in many ways. Do you have any update on the domestic violence situation? I believe last time we spoke, you said that cases were down.
Yeah, still no spike. I mean, there are a lot of incidents coming into us of situations occurring in the home. We are looking at it, but there has been no spike in domestic violence. Some of them are civil disputes that we're called to, but definitively no spike in domestic violence incidents at the moment. I will be releasing a crime report next week, and reference will be made to domestic violence figures.
Okay, thank you. That's all of my questions for you.
Thank you, Kayla. Wendy.
Thanks, Caroline. Good afternoon, Commissioner. How are you?
Wendy, good, thank you.
Can I just ask you to explain why a decision was made to impose a 21-day curfew that's going to change in a week? If you get what I mean, and why you haven't decided to just take it week by week to see how things change, as it were, rather than making the decisions from this point for 3 weeks out. If you could just explain the thinking by why we've imposed the curfew this way, this time.
So it's a phased relaxation of regulations, and we are still very much in the prevent, control and suppression stage of the virus. I think that's to the forefront of all decision making in terms of what we're doing to protect communities and save lives. So it's very important that it's done in a controlled manner. I'm sure the Governor and the Premier will say more about it, but from where I stand, or from the RCIPS side, and looking at it from the enforcement side, we're still very much in that prevention, control and suppression stage of it, and it needs to be done in a very controlled and phased way. And I think that's all perfectly reasonable in the circumstances and the environment in which we're operating.
Okay. Can I also get some clarification on Sunday? I don't know whether this would be a question later for the panel, but I understand at the moment, in theory, if a shop was open on Sunday, none of us could go anyway because there isn't an alphabet split. So if you wanted to go to the gas station on a Sunday now, how does that happen?
Okay, so that's an anomaly in the law. We have discussed it. It is addressed in the new regulations. So currently on this Sunday and the previous 2 Sundays, you have the Sunday trading law and orders made under the Sunday trading law, which allowed those gas stations and mini marts under 4,000 square feet to open for business. But the regulations only permitted the alphabet range to shop Monday to Saturday and precluded Sunday. This has now been addressed in the new regulations, which come into effect on Monday next, and it won't be an issue on the following 2 Sundays after that.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions. Thanks, Caroline.
Thanks, Wendy. We have some from the Kimanian Times as well. Ralph.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioner, and welcome back. Can you speak to the morale of your team? They've been doing some extended hours. Can you say how they're holding up under these circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely great. The team have been fantastic. And again, when I talk about the team, I talk about our CBC work officers, special constabulary, and of course our permanent officers, and I include my civilian support staff. They have been incredible in their approach to work, working long hours, commitment, and they remain completely committed to the task of enforcing the regulations. We are extremely pleased with the way it's going. And I did mention earlier on, at the start of it, we had introduced a new roster to provide 4 days on, 4 days off for plenty of downtime, and officers do work overtime in the middle 2 days. So rest certainly incorporated into it. Everything going extremely well. Morale is very high.
Great, and so you have enough officers to continue with the task ahead?
Yeah, we're doing very well. No shortage of officers at the moment. We're doing extremely well, yeah.
One final question. Have you got any challenges with dealing with the public who are breaking those laws or those curfews?
No, we had an incident last week where one of our officers was attacked with a machete. We dealt with that, and that's about. Most people are, as I said, understanding and compliant. You approach them, you tell them that they're in breach, and there's either a ticket issued or they're warned for prosecution, one or the other.
Okay. So Cayman Islands is a good place to be.
It is.
Thank you.
It is, yeah.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Commissioner. Now I know we'll all want to hear next from members of the panel. Premier.
Thank you, Carlin. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Today we are at another significant milestone. We've passed 11,000 test results, and we maintain our efforts to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic while moving closer to the recovery and rebuilding stage of the economy. Our testing results continue to indicate that whilst the virus is still very much amongst us, because of your efforts and sacrifices, we have so far been winning the fight against it. Because of the efforts of all the people of these islands, we are able to slowly emerge from our homes and to move about and feel safer in doing so. We have all sacrificed, from the eldest to the very young, and it has been hard. I know it has been hard, and it continues to be hard. But now there is more than just hope. There is the promise of a soon coming day when life can go back to some real semblance of normalcy. We are currently operating at suppression level 3. At this suppression level, the mission has been to get our society and economy moving safely by allowing outdoor recreation and economic activity to resume. It is widely known that the COVID-19 virus spreads most easily in enclosed environments, and therefore this increases the rate of transmission. And this realization has guided and continues to guide the decisions made at this level. And this is why indoor venues, including places of worship and school buildings, remain closed at this time, with church services and classroom teaching still happening online. As a country, we have a lot to be thankful for as we approach an enviable position of being able to relax restrictions with no hospital admissions and no further loss of life, other than the one unfortunate gentleman who we refer to as patient 0. It has always been our primary goal to save lives, and we will continue to approach our treatment of this pandemic with this as a priority. So I come back to hope and promise. As I've said from the beginning, we must preserve life and health and then look to rebuild. I will forever remember the many messages of support for what we were doing and are doing, and the many messages that showed me clearly that our people never lost hope. To paraphrase the late, great Martin Luther King Jr., there are times when as a people we must accept finite disappointment, but we never lose our infinite hope. It is that spirit of hope and the strength of our islands and of our people, all of our people, which has brought us thus far and will pull us through. This is why today I am pleased to announce an expansion of allowed activities within the current Level 3 moderate suppression phase, which will allow for more outdoor recreational opportunities, limited gatherings with friends and loved ones in public places, carefully managed additional economic activity such as outdoor dining and other business, which will safely help our country reunite and get back to work. That said, our private homes have been and should continue to be the safest place for us to be, and so gatherings in or visits to other households are still not permitted. Alongside the careful reopening of the country, while maintaining physical distancing requirements and other measures to keep us safe, we will also continue our testing, and we will continue to carefully monitor the spread of the virus in the community to ensure that community transmission continues to be low. All of us, however, have a part to play in this, and we must remain vigilant and continue to keep ourselves and others safe by practicing physical distancing, maintaining face and hand hygiene, and carefully considering if and when to participate in optional activities outside the home. We cannot yet become complacent. The virus is still amongst us. If we continue to have the success we are experiencing in suppressing the virus, then the plan is for us to move to Level 2 low suppression on the 22nd of June, which will then see a further easing of restrictions. As I said before, we are continuing to test aggressively, and we hope to reach a critical threshold of 25% of our population being tested in the next 3 weeks. We are currently at around 16%. We anticipate that at Level 2 low suppression, the risk of the virus being spread will be low enough that there will be an unlocking of high interaction and high touch businesses and services, a gradual increase in public gatherings, and perhaps most significantly, the return of external childcare to the home. I'm sure this will come to the relief of many parents and guardians who have been working at home while homeschooling. I am sure many children will also be very excited to see their nannies and helpers again. Also in Level 2 low suppression, as I said, which we hope to get to on the 22nd of June, we can also look forward to the possibility of changing our everyday environment by supporting our domestic tourism industry with staycations. Over the next few weeks, these and other activities will be reviewed to ensure that when the public health situation permits, we will be ready and able to move forward. And so with that, I want to spend a little time going through what the changes are over the 2 stages of the 21-day period that the Commissioner described very well. So there are 2 parts to this, really. One is the bits that involve the unlocking of economic activity, and the other is the easing of restrictions with respect to social activities and exercise. Starting with the economic activity. from Monday, 1st of June 2020, all construction businesses may fully operate. Construction and related businesses, subject to any conditions which may be imposed by the competent authority. And of course, as always, all employees observing and other people observing the social distancing requirements. All retail and real estate businesses will be able to fully operate. Again, all must observe the social distancing requirements and enforce the wearing of masks by customers. On the social exercise side, persons will be able to exercise in any public place, including government walking tracks, which will reopen. Also, persons will be able to engage in open-air, non-contact sports. So that still means no football and the like. Non-contact sports such as tennis and golfing. But no more than 2 at any time may engage in such sport, and this will be subject to any conditions which may be imposed by the competent authority, as well as persons observing the social distance requirements. So these provisions that I've just referred to will apply from Monday, 1st of June to Sunday, 7th of June. Persons will be able to travel to convenience stores, mini-marts, or gas or refilling stations on a Sunday. However, the surname restrictions will not apply to these Sunday visits. This is with respect to the 7th of June, not, and going forward, not this coming Sunday. It should be noted that in Grand Cayman, notwithstanding the gradual opening of more businesses, those businesses which are not exempted or specified in the regulations shall remain closed. However, where possible, their staff can continue to work remotely from home. This relates principally to persons involved in the financial services industry. Travel between the islands continues to be subject to the same restrictions as before. There is, however, a minor change in that persons who provide security services between the islands will now be classified as providing essential services for the purpose of travel between the islands. The changes to take effect on the 7th of June. From Sunday, 7th of June 2020, hard curfew will be from 10 p.m. to 4:30 a.m., as the Commissioner has explained. The definition of public meeting in the regulations will change in Grand Cayman, and gatherings of up to 6 persons will be permitted. The current limit is 2, and that will remain the case, the current limit, until Sunday the 7th. In Cayman Brac, there has been no change, and 25 persons or less will continue to be able to take part in the said activities. The social distancing requirements will continue to apply. This does not apply to Little Cayman, which has no such restrictions. However, social distancing requirements and the wearing of masks indoor in public places where you cannot distance yourself appropriately continues to apply to Little Cayman. From 7th of June 2020, in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac, restaurants and bars will be able to serve customers on any patio or other outdoor area which forms a part of the premises of the bar or restaurant. However, the following conditions will apply. 1, no more than 6 customers at a table, and unless these customers all come from the same household, social distancing requirements must be observed. 2, each table must be at least 8 feet apart. 3, no person shall be seated or served at an indoor counter in a bar or restaurant. And 4, any other conditions which may be imposed by the competent authority. Further, restaurants and bars will be able to open for such services until 9 p.m. Therefore, persons who travel to restaurants or bars to collect their food or to dine outdoors now have until 10 p.m. or will then have until 10 p.m. to return to their homes. The restaurants can continue with delivery of food until 11 p.m., which will be 1 hour later. Also, from the 7th of June, persons employed by businesses other than restaurants will be able to deliver until 11 p.m. In relation to exercise, a person will be able on or after the 7th of June to exercise with 5 other persons who are not members of the person's household for no more than 2 hours per day between the hours of 4:45 a.m. and 9 p.m. That is because the curfew has been adjusted backwards to 4:30 instead of the 5 that is currently the case. Also, persons will be able to exercise on a beach, swim in the sea, and fish from the shoreline on any day. Persons must, however, continue to observe the social distancing requirements when exercising outside of members of their own household. On or after the 7th of June in Grand Cayman, a person may use a boat between the hours of 4:45 a.m. and 9 p.m. on any day only for the purpose of fishing in the waters, subject to the following conditions. No more than 6 persons shall be on a boat. No person shall travel for pleasure between the islands to visit Cayman Brac or Little Cayman. And a person may operate or maneuver a boat so as to congregate, no person may operate or maneuver a boat so as to congregate or gather with any other person or any other boat or vessel, provided that the number of persons sorry, can I start that over? Forget what I just said about the last one. A person may operate or maneuver a boat so as to congregate or gather with any other person or any other boat or vessel, provided that the number of persons gathering does not exceed 6 persons. The current arrangement is only 2, so that number has increased to 6 who can be in a boat. So if there are only 2 or 3 in one boat, they can meet up with another boat that has 2 or 3 persons on board. The prohibition on boating activity in certain areas will continue. Thus, persons are still not permitted to congregate or have boats remain in Starfish Point, Rum Point, Sandbar, or Stingray City. In Cayman Brac, on or after the 7th of June 2020, a person may, on any day, continue to use a boat to travel for pleasure, including for fishing in the waters, and will be permitted to have 6 persons on board at any one time. The regulations will last until the 22nd of June 2020, or until such later date as the Cabinet may specify. So, to pick up on the question that Wendy asked, which the Commissioner referred to, the hard curfew and the shelter-in-place regulations have and continue to work in conjunction with each other to support the overall premise, which is the continued lowering of the risk of transmission, community transmission of the virus. And the reason why the hard curfew is still considered to be necessary is that the public health advice that we have is still that it remains at this stage still very risky to have situations which encourage partying and the excessive consumption of alcohol and people mixing amongst each other, as is normally the case when you have parties. And thus, until we arrive at the place where the risk of community transmission of the virus is considered to be very low, it is felt that the hard curfew is still necessary, and that late night partying is still to be prevented. As I've indicated, on the present trajectory, We hope that we will get there where we don't need a curfew by the 22nd of June. Nothing that we are seeing, nothing that we are hearing gives us any worry or concern that the present suppression efforts, or I should say that the present results will reverse, or the trend will reverse and start giving us significant numbers of positives or clusters. So if we are right about that and the current trend holds, we should be in a position where I and many others can get a haircut round about the 22nd. I think in the meantime, I'm going to have to start wearing a cap to these press conferences. So don't mind if you see me with one.
Thank you very much. I can lend you my clippers, Premier. This is indeed a significant moment in our response to the crisis, and I very much welcome the measures, the relaxation of the measures announced by the Premier today. And I do believe these are very sensible, very prudent, and very measured when considering the risks that we face, and drawn up in full consultation, an agreement with our Chief Medical Officer. But I do hope that these relaxations give everybody on the islands a lift, because I think restaurants and bars being open outside from the 7th is clearly a major step forward, all retail being open, and the restrictions, most of the restrictions on the beaches being lifted as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for all of your cooperation, because it's what you have done that has helped us to get to this moment. We are, of course, significantly increasing the likelihood of human interaction with the relaxation of these measures. So we do need to monitor the results. I do, again, urge everybody to pay so much close attention to the need for social distancing, basic hygiene, wearing masks in public places as we have more and more human interaction as we relax the measures. That is incredibly important for us to be able to manage the risk as we move forward. And as the Premier has said as well, I hope very much this is the last time we have to impose a hard curfew. It depends on the results, but we will hope to be able to move to suppression level 2 from suppression level 3, which would mean we could lift the hard curfew if things go the way we hope they do. Just on evacuation flights, I'm very pleased to confirm that the flight to London Heathrow is now confirmed for Friday, the 12th of June. If you have registered with the travel helpline, you will be sent an email on Monday with details of how to book. So please do not call or email the travel helpline if you have already registered, they do not have any further detail. We do not have any further details about this flight at the moment, or the helpline don't have any further details about this flight at the moment. We will be bringing back a limited number of passengers from London to Cayman on the BA flight. But because capacity is limited at the isolation facility, seats on the flight will be allocated by the Cayman Islands London office. So do not contact the travel helpline for that. They will be in touch with you. And also very pleased to announce that Cayman Airways are doing more flights to Miami on the 5th and the 26th of June and on the 3rd of July. The 4 that they announced for June were sold out very quickly, so that's good news. Just some updates on figures, because I know you're all very interested in those. So since we closed our borders on the 22nd of March, 1,473 people have departed on emergency evacuation flights, and 314 people have been able to return home to Cayman on those flights. And last Saturday's flight to Manila was the 25th emergency evacuation flight to depart Owen Robert International Airport. We remain very focused on Jamaica and on India as well. And then finally, I just want to note that yesterday I met with all the members of the UK Ministry of Defence Security and Assistance Team, known as the SAT. and after their isolation period came to an end. And I'm very grateful to them for all their work so far, liaising with the two Royal Navy ships, RFA Argus and HMS Medway, who will be coming to our shores around the 8th of June for a couple of weeks and providing us with helicopter cover whilst our police helicopter is off island. And the SAT team are also helping us on hurricane pandemic planning. They're supporting the development of our Cayman Islands Defence Regiment, on which we're making very good progress. And they're also supporting us around provision of medical supplies. And it's very good to have them here at this time to give us added resilience and reassurance and support. And they have a range of skills, including logistics, medical, legal, training, security, and planning experience, which we are finding extremely valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Good afternoon, everyone. Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman, and our Caymanian diaspora listening in. It's great that we had Miss Leah Johnson, a young lady, earlier, recognizing it's Child's Month. End the Child's Month with a prayer. And I thank you so much, Miss Leah Johnson, for that prayer. Also wanted to thank Ralph, actually, for what he said about Cayman being a good place to be. That is sometimes taken for granted, I think. But Cayman is a great place to be, and I believe is blessed beyond imagination. And we have a great depth of gratitude. We need to thank our forefathers and mothers for all the decisions they took, so that we could be at this point right now for everyone to enjoy Cayman. Let us not forget, for us to enjoy what most are calling a well-run gem in the Caribbean. It's very few of us left as Caymanians, but I am a believer that we should respect and appreciate what we found here. There has been a lot of changes over the last 25 years, and growth in the population has exploded, in some cases approximately 70% growth since 1998. This begs me to ask all who have come to our shores to recognize the adjustments we have had to make so swiftly, and the mental effects this can have on any nation. We have been able to coexist with all passing in and out over the years, with over 100 nationalities living here. But at times, the rhetoric that we hear is begging to breach this unity. This country must benefit, and not just some. Everyone in the country must benefit. And as long as we are cognizant of this, all will be well. Love brings happiness. Without love, there will be no peace, no harmony, and no unity. Matthew 6:25-26. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. It is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store anything away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Today I want to shout out Ms. Jane Solomon for all the work she does with placing Caymanians in jobs and being a champion of the Second Chance program at the prison. Also want to say happy birthday to Vincent Frederick. Also want to say happy birthday to Josie Minzit, 8 years old. It's come to my attention, and I'm sure the police are probably getting some complaints about walkers in the early morning at 5 a.m. Please remember to wear brighter clothes. This will be very helpful, and so we don't see any accidents out there early in the morning. Also, a number of community organizations have partnered together to deliver a series of motivational messages that will culminate tomorrow, the 30th of May, 7 p.m., with a concert and a mixture of global music offering and comedy. It's called Motivational Messaging. You can get on there by going on to motivationalmessages.org. I know we say it often, but there are some unprecedented times that we are living in. Only a few who are still alive today can say they have ever experienced anything of this level of crisis. And while we all have been adjusting to the global pandemic, many of us have been experiencing varying degrees of stress and anxiety, and even breaks in mental health. In the wake of this pandemic, one of the issues we have found people are now experiencing because of the social distancing or self-quarantine is cabin fever. Cabin fever is a common term around here, and it means the reaction to being isolated or confined for an extended period of time. Some of the common symptoms of cabin fever are lethargy, sadness or depression, trouble concentrating, lack of patience, food cravings, decreased motivation, difficulty walking, frequent napping, and hopelessness. I've been asked to note that these symptoms may also be suggestive of a wide range of other disorders. If any one of these symptoms are particularly distressing or impacting anyone's ability to function as normal, we encourage you to contact the Mental Health Helpline on 1-800-534-MIND, M-I-N-D. That is 1-800-534-6463 for free and confidential advice. The help you will find on the other end are some of the kindest and most knowledgeable people I've ever had the privilege of working with. I want to add here that though the progress has been slowed because of the pandemic, it only serves to motivate me further to ensure my ministry sees the opening of the long-term mental health facility in the very near future. If ever there's a time to truly appreciate how important this initiative is, would be now. For now, we are doing all we can to ensure everyone's physical and mental health is taken care of, and believe me when I say it is of this utmost importance during these times. I do want to offer a few tips that can be used at home to help in coping with any of these symptoms. But again, I encourage everyone who's experiencing any of these symptoms to contact the helpline or a trained mental health professional. We do not want anyone to feel as though they must deal with this alone. If you can, get out of your house, go outside for a walk or for some exercise, even if it's just a few minutes. Stretching for a few minutes a day has so many health benefits, it might surprise you. If you're able to take advantage of the opportunity to walk along our beautiful beaches, please do so, because the sunlight and fresh air can help regulate the body's natural cycles. And exercise releases endorphins, which have a pain-killing effect and can reduce pain. Of course, we ask you to adhere to the current regulations and requirements of social distancing. And when you can leave the house, find a way to stay physically active while indoors. Regular physical activity can help you burn off any extra energy you have from being cooped up indoors. There are many online resources available to help with finding exercises that can work for you, including yoga or high-impact interval training, or other exercises outside with your family in the yard. Try your best to continue with your normal eating patterns and try to monitor eating habits. Do not skip meals and try to plan meals around the same time every day. Eat healthy, low-sugar foods, as balancing our nutrition keeps our immune systems healthy. Set daily and weekly goals and track your progress towards completion. Make sure that your goals are reasonable and reward yourself for meeting each milestone. It is best to limit your screen time and watching hours of TV. Try to stimulate yourself by doing crossword puzzles, reading a book, or playing board games with family members. You can play online as well if you are currently separated from your loved ones. This can help keep you moving forward and reduce feelings of isolation and helplessness. Try to stay social, watch the local live stream events happening on the Department of Tourism's Facebook. Check out the community page on the government's website, government.ky/coronavirus, or the happy hour events that showcase local musicians. And reach out to friends, call someone different every day, and share what you've been up to and encourage them as well. And of course, visit the wellness page, which has so many useful tips and resources at www.exploregov.ky/mind, M-I-N-D. It is important to take this situation seriously while accepting the necessity of having to stay inside. There are many things you can do to help fight off the cabin fever feeling. Please also know that the government is doing all it can to move forward with its plan to slowly open back up the economy and get things to a new normal. But for now, please shelter in place and let's beat this virus. We will no doubt be able to move about more regularly soon, but I ask you to remember that for now, staying home is helping to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. When you do venture out, you wear your masks and wash your hands as much as you can and stay the minimum required 6 feet distance from others. A reminder for everyone of the mental health helpline is 1-800-534-MIND. If you or someone you know needs free and confidential advice, do not hesitate to call. You are not alone. I just want to add a note here that all the frontline test takers, that they should log in to via the My HSA portal to see their test results. The HSA website is www.hsa.ky. We'll have more details on the mobile app and how to access it. I thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Minister. Before we go to members of the media, some members of the public have got a few questions, some clarifications, if you will, for the Premier. And the first one was the increase in gathering numbers to 6. I believe that comes into effect from the 7th.
7th.
Of June.
7th, yeah.
And the question was is that in addition to members of your own household?
Yes.
So you could have a situation where each member of that 6 brought with them several...
No, the numbers wouldn't work then.
So if I'm a household of 4, I can meet up with 6 other people from outside that 4, so it'd be 10.
Right.
Perfect.
So, but the thing is that if each of you bring your whole family, you now no longer have a gathering of 6 people. Because you're not within your own household now, remember. It's your household and their household and their household as well. So that's the result we're trying to achieve, is still to limit the number of people who are exposed to each other, and while opening out gradually. But if everybody who goes to dinner decides to take their entire family with them, we rather defeated the whole purpose.
And the second
But
question,
only 6 are allowed at a table in any event.
it was actually about that relaxation of the rules. Are people free to go to restaurants and bars under those the sort of criteria that you mentioned? Is that on any day of the week or with the alphabet?
That'll be any day of the week. That's not going to be subject to the A to K and L to Z division.
And would those separations still apply for members going to for people going to the supermarkets and so on? That system would still be
Yes,
in place?
that system will still stay in place for all attendance at all retail stores, convenience stores, mini markets, supermarkets, banks. That's still in place. And the purpose of that, it's not arbitrary. It's not because we want to be difficult or overly restrictive, but that automatically reduces by half the number of people who are able on any given day to attend to in a particular facility. Coming back to the restaurants and the bars, rather than try arbitrarily to say that the number should be reduced by 25% or 50%, because not all places are configured the same way. Some it could be exactly the same square footage, but it may be more able to accommodate more people than another facility which is configured differently. The onus is still on the proprietor of all of these establishments to ensure that the distancing and other safety requirements are complied with. But in addition, the regulations provide no more than 6 persons at a table. Tables are to be spaced a minimum of 8 feet apart, and no service at the counter, the bar counter or the restaurant counter. So you've got to sit at a table and be served. Additional protocols, each restaurant and bar that is reopening and again, these are only the outdoor, those that have outdoor facilities. They will have to be required to submit to the competent authority their plan for reopening and the layout of the area that is going to be used, and obtain that approval. And all their staff will be required to wear masks when serving as well. So those are just some of the additional requirements that the competent authority will impose to, again, do everything we can to ensure that this is a safe reopening and that we don't have to do what is having to be done in many other places today, notably South Korea, where they've had another massive spike in the numbers. We are trying to go slowly forward rather than to go flying forward and then have to go back. I've said to the governor, my cabinet, and everybody else that will listen to me, I just don't have the strength to go through another massive lockdown again. Somebody else is going to have to do that. I'm going to Cayman Brac and hide if that happens. So we want to hasten slowly, but never have to reverse.
Great, thank you. I hope that clarification helps members of the public. Kayla, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you. I imagine that these regulations will be published later today to answer a lot of the questions people have around what time might we expect a print copy.
They're going to be gazetted as quickly as the Attorney General's office can get it done. We hope sometime towards the end of today. They don't come into effect, remember, until Monday.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And will diving be allowed under these regulations?
No, I'm afraid not.
Is there a reason that we're holding off on allowing divers to re-enter the water?
Yes, I can say so, but it's not. I'm going to try my very best to use the most polite terms, but it's not a terribly tasteful thing to talk about. We've gone through all of these things, believe it or not, with Dr. Lee and the public health team. So there is a lot of touching around, and sometimes the use by multiple persons of the same goggles and snorkels and those other things. There's also a lot of saliva around these things, and all of these are considered to significantly increase the risk of transmission of the virus if those involved in it have it. And that's why diving is off limits.
Okay. Would there be any consideration for people who have their own gear, their own tank?
Well, the regulations make no such provision. I would just ask them to hang on for a little bit longer. The problem with exceptions for individuals is that we get questions from people like Wendy who say you're favoring one over the other.
Okay. And we're getting a lot of questions from working parents about how to manage the reopening of certain businesses, how people can return to work without access to childcare. Is it possible that families will be able to start having a nanny come to their home or be able to bring their child to a daycare center in the near future?
If all stays on track from the 22nd of June, but not immediately, this is a subject of massive debate and discussion. right up until the very last when Cabinet approved these these regulations a couple of hours ago, because it is a huge logistical problem for parents who have to go back to work. But the advice, the firm advice from the CMO is that the sheer number of domestics and caregivers that we are talking about, the manner in which most of them are required to live, that is multiple households within one home or apartment, as the case may be. And the fact that these people are coming into your home not for a short period, but for the entire day. They are touching everything that you have. They are washing your clothes. They are washing your dishes. They are hugging your children. They are changing your children. The risks are, if that individual has the virus, it is as almost absolutely certain that it will get passed on. And that demographic has not been tested at all, as far as we've been aware, unless they've been symptomatic. And there is still not sufficient evidence that it is not, the virus is not prevalent in that particular demographic. And so the CMO cannot and will not recommend that we reopen that sector yet. As I said, and we've talked about this as recently as yesterday, if the current trend continues and we get the restaurants and the bars open again for outdoor service, and we don't see, along with construction and retail, and we don't see a significant increase in the infection rate, which is currently trending now about 1.3, 1.4%, we should be able to reopen what I will call the touch services, as well as allow external child care and domestic help to come back into the homes with, we think, at that point, on the basis of that evidence, minimal risk.
Okay. One of the conflicts that I'm envisioning as people are returning to their workplaces is, how do you return to your office if you have young children at home? How do people navigate that situation? And is there any protection for workers who are forced to tell their employer, I can't come to the office because I have a toddler?
Yes, we know that's exactly the discussion that we've been having. And no, there isn't any provision in the law that allows protection. We can just continue to do as I and the governor and the minister and others have been doing for the last almost 3 months now, is to appeal to the reasonableness and common sense and compassion of those who are employers, to understand the circumstances that currently exist. And now there really is, I wouldn't even say light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we can see the end line if we stay the course. And as I keep saying, if we stay the course, all indications are we won't have to go in reverse, as just about every country that has rushed this has had to do. I wish I had some magic solution for how people deal with this issue and managing young children. I remember when I had 2 young children, and I can, my helper, even all these years later, is still very, very important to us, critical part of, I regard as my mother. She's been with me 28 years. So, but we can get by without her because we don't have young children. Although the myriad of things that we do now that we haven't done in many years, but we can do that. But I do empathize, and as does my entire government, with those who have young children and are faced with this dilemma. As I say, we can only appeal to employers to be reasonable and compassionate, and to understand that if a mother in particular cannot leave her children, don't cause her to lose her job over that. In 3 weeks, if all stays on track, you'll have her back in good shape and she nor you should have to worry too much about contracting the virus from each other or from anybody else in the workplace or indeed from the community, because we would have, if not completely have eliminated it, certainly significantly reduced the risk of it being passed on.
Okay, so it sounds like after the 22nd, we might see some relief announced for parents.
Well, I can be more positive than that. If I hate to even use that word positive anymore, I could be more certain about is that if the current trend continues, we will be able on the 22nd to release domestic and helpers and nannies back into the home.
Great. And another big category of questions is schools and education. And perhaps this would be something for the education minister to return to address. But first, are we still anticipating that exams, CXC exams, and others would continue this summer?
I think the last report I've had, and I hate to venture to areas that I don't really have a full grasp of the facts, but I believe that because of a decision that was taken by the CXC Council, the CXC exams are proceeding. They have taken a decision, these are the Caribbean-based exams, that they are proceeding. But if my recollection is not wrong, I think the UK-based exams have been deferred. But I can't be absolutely certain. And I hate to not really speculate, but trying to work from memory. I haven't looked at this in a while. But with schools, generally, the plan, I think on the present trajectory, we can look forward to schools reopening the usual time after the summer break, unless something goes terribly wrong that we don't foresee.
And, say that we do see schools reopening after summer break, do we anticipate that students would continue on to the next grade as normal, or would this be on a case-by-case basis?
Well, that would be decisions in the case of the private schools, for those schools, I think, and in the case of the public school system, obviously a decision taken by the Education Council in conjunction with the Department of Education and the Ministry. I can't answer that question today.
That's fine. One that you or the governor might be able to address is the issue of students studying off island. That I'm sure that there has been questions about that, if they'll be able to do that, and if upon return, if they'd be able to return in quarantine.
I mean, there is, Kayla, almost certainly a British Airways flight to London in around mid-August, because we're very aware there is a large group of students who need to go to UK for school and universities, so and families wanting to go with them. But obviously, the quarantine aspect remains very relevant, because the UK is now introduced that system for people going into the UK, and then people would have to quarantine at the moment on return here. And I know there are people who need to go to the US, but the Miami flights are the best route for that, and then people can get wherever they're going in the US from Miami.
Okay, great, thank you. And this may have been resolved already, but we got a message from a school bus warden who said that they have not been paid since March. Do we have an update on that situation, or should those workers apply to the NAU?
Okay, I hope they don't have to apply to NAU. I think we have sorted the problem from our end. But just by way of background, although we've had this before, so the bus contractors who transport school children on behalf of the Cayman Islands government have a contract which is based on the number of trips they make and the number of students that they take. So the challenge that the financial folk found, because they are not carrying out any services, not because of their fault, but because of this epidemic, this crisis, there was no trigger for the payments. Now the bus companies are responsible for paying the school wardens, the bus wardens. But obviously, again, they get paid on the basis of the number of trips that are made, so that their earnings are again tied to the number of trips that the buses make. So some bus contractors have gone ahead and paid their wardens from their own sources, while government has been trying to find a workaround for how can we justify in the sense of the financial regulations, payments for services which are not being rendered. So the appropriate workaround has been found. The ministry has put it forward, and Cabinet has now approved it. So that issue, I hope, should be resolved and implemented over the course of next week, and bus contractors can get their checks, and then hopefully they can pay those wardens who are still out of pocket.
Great, thank you for that. I will hand over the screen to the other reporters now.
Thank you, Kayla. Before we go to Felicia at Radio Cayman, I just wanted to, in my attempt to understand, I think I've further confused members of the public. They're asking for the avoidance of doubt. It's 6 people in total that can gather from the 7th of June. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So members of your, if I have a household of 4 people, I can meet 2 others with them.
So, okay, let's see. So yes, correct. So if you are having, I even hate to encourage this, but if you're having, if you having I didn't want to use dinner party, but I can't think of another term. So if you want to go to one of the outdoor places, let's say Grand Ole House, and you book reservations with a table of 6, and there are 4 people in your family, that's fine. And you invite 2 of your friends, that's good.
Great.
But your 2 friends now can't bring their households.
So 6. As long as there's 6, we're fine. I hope that clarifies. I'm sorry for members of the public that I further confused there. Felicia, go ahead with your question. Hopefully it's slightly more straightforward.
Hi, yes. My question is actually for Minister Seymour. What are your thoughts on the COVID-19 posters that have been displayed on bus shelter locations across the island? How informative do you think they are, and how helpful do you think they are for the public?
I have to be honest, I haven't actually seen what you're speaking of. I don't know exactly. I know my 5-year-old daughter made one and put on a bus shelter. I don't know. I don't exactly know what you're speaking of. I'm so sorry.
Okay, it's fine. Well, next question. What are your thoughts on the various initiatives and programs being offered to the community on Zoom, including the upcoming Millennial Motivation Program? How effective do you think these programs have been since COVID-19?
Well, it's very effective, and we've been announcing a myriad of these events over the last couple of weeks. It gives people something to do and not just concentrate and I'm stuck at home. Gives them something to watch. Some people are bored. Children are bored, and they want something to do. They want to get out the house. So it gives the family something to do at home, and not make people feel so clustered and stuck at home. So I think any event like that, especially that one, it's actually an international event. It's going to be a lot of entertainers from about 10 countries are going to be joining in on Zoom for this event tomorrow. So it's like anything else, you know, whether that's American Idol or Voice or whatever. It's just something to do, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Cayman News Service, Wendy.
Thanks, Kayla. Thanks for that, Caroline. My first question is just to make sure that I understand. The question I asked earlier of the Commissioner about Sundays, I appreciate it's definitely happening from the 7th. But what's the situation for tomorrow? Is it still the same?
Sunday, you mean? Yes.
Yeah, so you still can't go to the gas station tomorrow. I mean, on Sunday coming.
No, and it's because of, as this commissioner said, of the anomaly. Well, it's not a real anomaly. Certain businesses are allowed to operate on a Sunday, which is otherwise considered a prohibited day for trading. These exceptions are convenience stores, mini markets, gas stations, and some liquor stores. So we haven't troubled that legislation in what we are doing here.
Right.
That is in the prevention, control, and suppression of COVID-19 regulations, which are made under the public health law. But those regulations, which will, the current iteration of which will expire on the 1st, do not permit persons to go out on a Sunday except for certain very limited circumstances. That is, to exercise or to purchase and collect prepared food.
Okay.
So that's what's created the anomaly. We recognize it's an anomaly. It's one of those sort of untidy things, but these regulations will expire on Monday. So we've just left it rather than trouble it and create even more confusion. So the new set of regs, when they come in on Monday the 1st, then all of that will go away. So essentially, this is the last Sunday, we hope forever, when this sort of situation will exist.
Okay, cool. I get it now. The next one is, which is also a bit sticky, but obviously something that's got to be addressed. As the economy opens up on Monday, even further, a lot more people going to work. What about buses? How are they going to get to work?
Yeah, well, buses, public transport has been allowed to operate since last week, Monday.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. As you know, I've been away off sick, so.
Right. So subject to
on the road.
Right. So it was one of those difficult ones, Wendy, because I mean, from a public health standpoint, but it is again one of those where you had to weigh up the risk against the practicality and come to a view, because so many of the people involved in the areas that are being reopened require transport because they don't have their own vehicles. Yeah. And so the sort of trade-off we did after a great deal of agonizing about it is we've restricted the number of persons who can be on a bus to half its normal capacity, and placed an onus on the driver to as far as possible to comply with the social distancing requirements. So essentially one person to a seat kind of thing.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so that's going to continue through the rest of the month. So that's that problem resolved. Okay, the next one is family reunions. So where you've had circumstances where parents have been split from older children or vice versa, is that still not going to happen in the next month?
So you can invite your family out to dinner.
That's it. So that's the only possibility.
But you can't take them in your home.
Yes. Okay.
So again, this is not arbitrary or it is because the public health advice is that once people come into your home, you significantly increase the risk of transmission of the virus if they have it, because they're using your things, they're using your facilities, they're touching things, they're hugging you. It's much easier to control these things in a public setting than it is in the privacy of your home.
Okay. Conversely, on the other side of that, of like family reunions, which would have been likely to be older generation, younger generation, we're going to have the problem now of where we have multi-generational households where people have been locked down together, and now more people from that household are likely to be going out to work and bringing it back to granny. So has government thought about any offering protective environments, not exactly quarantine, but protective environments for those elderly people that are concerned, or families that have concern that they can't protect their elderly with everybody going back to work?
what would those be? What would those look like?
Well, remember you said at the beginning, essential workers were allowed to quarantine in government facilities. They were offered rooms in government facilities so that they wouldn't bring the virus home to their elderly or vulnerable relatives. I was just wondering, given how many people are now going out to work, whether there's a possibility for government to be able to offer the converse of that, which is to give the elderly members of the family somewhere to go for them to quarantine from their potential, from the spread of the virus, from an increased number of their family members going out.
No, we haven't considered that. I mean, that now we're talking about some real serious logistical and capacity issues within the government structure and service, and even just the facilities, were we to go down that road.
Yeah, complicated, I know, but it's just I was thinking, given.
I mean, even the facilities, the isolation facilities we have now are at capacity. So you know, so there's only so much you can do when they. In the perfect world,
I agree.
I agree. In the perfect world.
The only ones that are remaining are just some clarification on what is actually going to open on the 7th. Does that include dentists being able to expand the services they offer? Because they are part of the medical profession, but it seems that they've been kind of left to flounder a bit in terms of not being able to do anything. So will we be able to go get our teeth cleaned and fillings done?
No, I'm afraid not. Only emergency services for dentists. They are in the touch service category.
Okay.
So they would.
So no special dispensation, given that they are medical professionals and know how to protect themselves and their clients.
No, until well, I don't necessarily keep a track of it, but I haven't heard really of any of them anxious to do so.
We've started to have quite a few actually, but these are a more recent emergency.
Right. Dr. Lee is here. I'd forgotten he was hiding behind the screen. Maybe he can answer the question better.
Okay, yes, thank you.
So, Wendy, good afternoon again. The Health Practice Commission has previously released guidelines around all healthcare practitioners, which includes dental staff, who are able to provide emergency and urgent services. And these have continued to be provided, certainly at the Health Services Authority. I don't know about the private dentists. I don't know them in so much detail. But I am surprised to hear you say that dentists are not able to work at all, because that's not a directive if they are able to provide urgent and emergency services. As far as I'm aware,
not their full range, because that's what it is really. It's
that is correct. The Health Practice Commission has not changed their recommendations. It's not a full range of services yet. But I hinted a few days ago that at level 2 it would be likely that healthcare professionals would go back to a full range, although that is a decision that would be joined with government's consideration and also the Health Practice Commission's consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. I've just got one more regards these. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Can the Premier please just clarify the businesses that will be allowed to open on Monday, aside from the whole of construction, real estate and retail? Does he mean every shop that sells stuff like clothes, everything? Can you just clarify the businesses that will be allowed to open?
Yes, it's all of those.
So office supplies, which have been delivering everything. So basically all shops except for presumably sort of spas and salons.
Yes, only those, and I'm getting lots of hate mail as I sit here from those categories, but everybody else really, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
On that, actually, Premier.
That's all my questions.
Thank you, Wendy. A question about whether those retail outlets will have to apply for an exemption to the competent authority or whether they're granted.
Right. So the exemption is granted by the regulations, but what individual employees need if they're stopped by the commissioner's men or women is a letter saying, I am working for a business that has been exempted under the regulations. That's the reason why you write to the competent authority in most instances, except in those instances where the regulations allow the competent authority or require the competent authority to consider whether or not conditions should be, certain conditions for public health reasons principally, should be imposed, like with the opening of restaurants and bars and so forth. But the regulations exempt all retail and real estate and construction. But in the case of construction, they've had to get letters and so forth. So that's the reason why you need the letters.
My question was going to be about real estate as well, but you
Yeah, they're covered as well.
in the same bubble. Okay, great. Any closing thoughts from members of the panel?
Well, just to say that I think we've decided that next week we'll do these press conferences on Tuesday and Friday, and beyond that we may move to having press conferences as and when needed, rather than scheduling them on a regular basis as we get back more and more to a new normal.
Thank you. The great thing about cell phones and people listening in, thank you so much. Thank you for the question earlier about the signs on the bus stops. Rotary Central and the local businesses and the government got together and did these posters up about 6 feet social distancing, and it states that 6 feet saves lives. Staying 6 feet apart saves lives. One of the main reasons and the ways to slow down this coronavirus is, wearing your mask, washing your hands, and definitely your social distancing. You're 6 feet apart. It must be noted that social distancing only can work if we participate all together. This is what slows down or prevents the spread of the virus. And we welcome what the Rotary Central and the local business and government has this initiative. And I've actually seen a picture of it now. I hated to say that most of the times Premier don't allow us to go home until 9, 10 o'clock in the night. So we can barely see anything.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. A reminder that you can watch Child Month's Teen Panel on COVID-19, its impact on local teens. That's on CIG TV YouTube and the Department of Children and Family Services Facebook. And the panel will also be rebroadcast on CIG TV from Monday the 1st to Saturday the 6th of June at 6 p.m. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Tuesday. Stay tuned to catch up with the latest local and world coronavirus statistics.